Hey everybody, Schneider here. In today's video, I'm going to do part 2, the full tutorial of Versace on the Floor, my reharmonization for jazz, R&B, piano, whatever you want to call it. So you just heard a little bit of it at the beginning of the video, and now I'll play the rest, and then we'll do the tutorial and go from there. Okay, so that's the whole thing. A lot of chords in there, so I'm gonna go over it as quickly as I can, but still try to cover some detail. So we went over the first part in my last video where we talked about the drop 2 voicings and the diminished chords leading to the minor chords, and I'll play it for you again. So we have the D add 9 up top, and then we do that drop 2 voicing for the D sharp diminished, followed by E minor 7, then D sharp diminished again, E minor 7 again, with those drop 2 voicings, resolving to the A over C. And that, as I said before, is a 2-5, E minor to A major, which resolves to the B major, which is the major 6 chord. It's a special chord because it doesn't exist within the key of D major normally. It has that D sharp in it, which is definitely not in the key of D major. Also, if you guys want to follow along with the sheet music, it's available on my Patreon page. So I'm going to link that up top so you can go get a copy of the sheet music and then have that in front of you while we do this tutorial. But from there, we're going to go back into the key of D with E minor. That's the 2 chord, walking up here with the 3 chord, F sharp minor 7, and then the 4 chord, of course, G major 7. From there, we're going to start to explore a little bit outside of the key of D. We're going to do this B add 9 over D sharp, which is sort of like a 5 of E minor, because after all, we're going to E minor next. So that measure is kind of interesting, or that phrase is kind of interesting, because we start with the E minor to the F sharp, and then we end with the E minor going to the F sharp. So it kind of comes around full circle. Finally, we resolve to C sharp minor 11, which is really an interesting chord here. It doesn't exist in the key of D again, it's non-diatonic, but it does have that E in the melody, which links nicely from what we had before. And I love this voicing. It's that C sharp minor 11 voicing. This is one of the voicings in my Sick Chords Volume 1 collection that I just came out with. I know I'm plugging it again, but if you haven't checked out Sick Chords Volume 1, you have to. It's got so many good voicings for jazz, R&B, neo soul. It's all 7th chords, it's all of this kind of stuff, and you can do your own reharms once you have all those voicings at your disposal. So it's a great reference, highly recommend it. But let's jump back in. We got that C sharp minor 11 voicing. And then this next part's really cool because the harmonic rhythm is actually always hitting on upbeats. So I'll play it first. I'm going to count with the 8th notes. I'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and pay attention to when the chords actually hit. Here we go. So C sharp minor 11, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So all 4 of those chords, A minor 7 over C, G major over B, C over B flat, and the A major, all hit on the upbeats. Really propels the whole thing forward. And also pay attention to the bass line there. From the C sharp, we're going down chromatically. C sharp, C, B, B flat, finally A. Really nice way to get to that 5 chord, which is A. After the A, we just do a really easy cadence to D major. I really wanted to clear the air there. It gets kind of crazy harmonically. We have all these chords. I felt it really needed to relax a little bit, just do a regular 5-to-1 progression to get us back to the tonic. Of course, right after that, we go nuts again. And if you pay attention to the inner voice, there's some really cool stuff happening in there, especially on this D sharp. Follow this D sharp, ready? So we have this, which, whenever you can get inner voices to sound good, it really makes whatever you play sound better. The proper voice leading always makes things sound good. It doesn't even matter what the harmony is. Good voice leading equals good sounding music. So in that case, I have the F sharp 13, F sharp 7, flat 13, flat 9, to the 5 of that 2, even though it's a 2 dominant. I'm going to blow through this a little bit quickly. So we have the G over A, and then the A over G. This chord progression is really cool. In the key of D, usually this would go to like a D over F sharp. Listen to this. You hear that resolution there? It's like a 5 sus chord to the A over G with the 7 in the bass, and then resolving the 7 resolving down to the 3 in D major, which would be D over F sharp. We don't do that here. By the way, if anybody's studying classical music theory, you'll know this is called the 5-4-2 chord. And we're not going to get into figured bass today, but maybe we will at some point if you guys are interested. Okay, but we're not going to D major over F sharp. We're going to F major 7, which also really does shine well with the A. Then we're going up, 2-5-1, to E minor. Easy. This is another common chord progression, the descending bass from the minor 7 chord. So if you've ever heard of Benny Golson, he was an old jazz composer. He wrote some standards like Whisper Not and Along Came Betty, and he uses this chord progression a lot where you have the minor chord, and then you do the flat 7 in the bass, and then you go down a half step from there and you do like a minor 2-5. But what I'm doing is a little bit different. I have the minor chord with the flat 7 in the bass there, descending bass line, but instead of going to a half diminished chord, I'm gonna go to C sharp fully diminished. So, followed by F sharp 7 flat 9. That's kind of like a 2-5 shape right there. It's moving up a 4th, down a 5th. I know I'm going fast here, but we're only on the 3rd line, so I gotta keep going. This is kind of nice. I'm doing this, the same voicing, up whole steps. The G over B, A over C sharp, B over D sharp. And then when I get to the B over the D sharp, by the way, just to point out here, this is the major chord with the added 2 and the 3rd in the bass. It's a great voicing, one of my favorites, also in Sick Chords Volume 1. So let's go up. When I get to this one, I do a nice little harmonization of the outer voices. The melody goes F sharp G A, and I'm harmonizing that. It's just a 10th. And I'm keeping my inner voices the same. Alrighty? Okay, one more time, we'll walk it up. Resolves really nicely to that G major, descending bass line. There's the 2 chord, to the 1, to the 5 with the 3rd in the bass. Just really smooth bass lines happening here. If you want, you can resolve it down to the root position. Okay, so we're gonna do another one of those diminished drop 2 voicing walk-ups here. So this voice leading is my favorite in the entire arrangement. I'll play it again, just pay attention to, one thing you can do actually is see if you can lock your ears in on one of the inner voices and follow that line. Here we go. Every voice is just smoothly going to the next chord. And the harmony there, what are we doing? We're starting with B minor 7 and we're getting to that A7 flat 9 with the C sharp, and then finally resolving back to the D major 7. So let's do a little bit more of a breakdown there. So there's the B minor 7. This is just the regular 6 minor chord in D major. Then we're going to C sharp diminished 7. This would normally resolve to a D major chord. It's just the basic 7 diminished chord. But instead of resolving up to D major, we're going up to D sharp diminished. Because we're gonna, well, it's technically You can think of it as D sharp diminished, but you could also think of it as F sharp diminished 7. And I say that because the next chord is going to be a G, and F sharp leads really nicely into G, right? F sharp, G. And I'm just doing some different inversions here. So what do I have here? I have the, and I go to the G with the 5th in the bass. Now pay attention to each voice here. That resolves nicely down to D, A resolves nicely down to G, C resolves nicely down to B, and F sharp resolves up to G. Everything's moving just a little bit to get to the next chord. And the same thing. This is a super crunchy chord, a lot of fun to play. And that tension just resolves right into the D major. The next chord is nothing too wild, but it's that 3 dominant chord, which normally would go to a B minor, but we're gonna go to the G major. Resolves up really well. Okay, some craziness coming up. This is a really good example of keeping the same note in the top voice and changing the chords underneath it. And I'm gonna mention it one more time because this is exactly why I designed the Sick Chords Volume 1 in the way I did, so that you can take a single note in the melody and come up with all of these different chords that work underneath it. So we have C major 7, B13, B13 flat 9, A13, A flat 13 sharp 9. Every one of those chords is voiced with the B in the melody. And that's why it works so well. You have these disjunct chords that are linked together with a really smooth bass line and a really consistent top voice. The bass line just keeps going down. That F13 sharp 11 chord, that's tritone substitution. So we're gonna be, we're just doing a pretty standard 2-5-1 there with that F sharp minor 9 flat 5. And then instead of doing a B7 chord, F sharp B E 2-5-1, we're doing the tritone substitution. So B and F are a tritone away. Usually I would do this, F sharp B E, but instead I'm doing F sharp F E. Okay? Getting kind of bluesy there. Basically there I'm playing an A7 voicing just like this, and I'm taking an F sharp triad and going between that and an E minor triad. It's got that bluesy gospel-y sound, works really well. And then once more, here we go, grand finale, I'm gonna do the G sharp. This is the same kind of thing with the drop 2 voicings. G sharp diminished drop 2, A minor 7 drop 2, C sharp diminished drop 2, finally resolving to D. So those drop 2 voicings are great, especially with diminished chords. So G sharp diminished is the 7 of A minor, which is why it resolves really well into the A minor chord. And then of course C sharp diminished is the 7 of D. So if you think about what key you want to go to, just think about what is the half step below that key and make that a diminished chord. So if you want to go to F, go down a half step from there, that's E, make it E fully diminished, and it resolves really well into F. Just keep in mind, you got to use good voice leading to make that kind of thing work. Okay, so we got D major, descending bass line. So what is that? That's harmonizing with that descending bass line. If you have a good bass line, a lot of the stuff really does come together. It helps you organize your harmony. And then finally, you think we're going to the 1, right? You think you're going with that cookie cutter ending there, but we're gonna do a little bit of a deceptive cadence, not going to the 6, going to the 4 via another tritone substitution. A flat is the tritone away from D, land on the G add 9. And then if you want, you can resolve it. Or you can let it hang, which is totally cool too. Ending on the 4 chord is something that I really like to do. It does do a nice job of just letting the thing kind of like dissipate, and you're like, okay, is it gonna end? Is it gonna end? And then there's no more music. And you know, even Bach did this kind of thing where he'll end on a 5 chord and it sounds like a 5 chord, but then somehow it transitions to a 1 chord in your head. It's weird. But that's the whole arrangement. I know I said there's a lot of chords. I wasn't kidding. If you guys have any questions, you can leave them down below, or you can, even better, post them on my Patreon page, because that's where I'm always looking and answering questions a little bit more promptly than YouTube. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Sick Chords Volume 1 is available. I've linked it up top. I'm linking it down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh, one more thing. If you guys want me to do any other reharmonizations of other pop tunes or anything really, this is part of the Make Anything Jazzy series that I've created. So feel free to suggest some tunes in the comments. And I'll see you next time. Bye.